Absolutely. Started the recording. Agree with you. Let's do this. It is the second time round. So, Cindy, welcome to you. We're all here on the site, so you're not on your own. And so that you know, today was called for the people that missed the first induction, Master Practitioner, and or including their PAs, because there's supposed to be a number of PAs people that are going to assist them involved in this call as well. So,
okay.
And let's run through it. You did get the attachment that I attached to the invite.
Yes, I did get it. And just to add, Annie's PA is joining us on Monday. So what I'll do is that I'll also brief her so that obviously if you guys do the next call, she then understands what's her role in this.
Well, what I'll do is I'll share this recording, because we're recording this, and I'm going to now share it with everybody because we actually started last week Friday. That was the kickoff and the start of the process. And you'll see as we go through it, it's a 2-month process. That's Iva. I hand over to you. Let's attack this, and we can all redo this because we'd like to learn more.
All right, Sharon, can you make me a presenter so I can just share my screen?
Are you sure we're not going to lose?
Shouldn't lose anyone.
Let's see if we're going to lose bandwidth.
You're first.
So let's have a look. Should be coming through to you any minute.
All right, can you guys see the screen?
Not yet. Yeah, something is coming up.
Okay, excellent. All right, fantastic. So whether we're talking to an individual who is being considered to be awarded the Master Contact Center Practitioner designation, or whether we're talking to an assistant of that individual who has been tasked with ensuring that the portfolio of evidence required for processing has been built, this session is for either of those two target individuals. What we are saying here is that whereas the individual has been nominated to be considered by the professional body for the award of Master Professional Practitioner Contact Center, so irrespective of how a person has got to be nominated, there is still a process within the professional body that needs to be engaged in to ensure that the portfolio of competency, more than anything else, portfolio of evidence about the individual has been built up sufficiently for it to be assessed by our trained assessors, moderated by the individuals to whom the assessors report, and finally then approved by the board of the professional body so that the CEO of the professional body is in a position to sign the designation awards. As Sharon has mentioned, if no remediation is required, in other words, if everything is there that we're going to be going through, or at least 60% of the components are in place, that process should take about 2 months. It will take longer if there is additional things that are missing or processes that need to be engaged in. So basically we're saying this, that any individual who has worked in excess of 15 years in one or more of the 5 core industries in the contact center sector, who has a CV in place, who has letters of appointment in place, either for the last job or for successive jobs there before, who has letters of reference, confirmations of appointments from boards, and evidence for the various employers which constitute those 15 years. They must have worked, of those 15 years, they must have worked for 10 years at a senior management level, and there we would want to see job descriptions, any letters of promotion, any performance appraisal results, or in fact any annual reports which might reference or mention the individual that we are considering to be awarding a master designation to. They must themselves have been in charge of 150 or more staff for a minimum of 4 years and have had 3 or more line managers reporting to them for a minimum of 4 years. And here we would look at the direct performance management reports that the candidate has initiated with their subordinates. We would look at references from HR or senior management to prove that particular point, that 150 or more staff members have reported to them, and 3 or more line managers reporting them to them for a minimum of 4 of those 15 years. We need to know that these individuals have been responsible for turnover of budgets in excess of 20 million rand for 5 years or for longer. If they've been in charge of small businesses with turnover less than 20 million rand, that's fine. We just need evidence of the amounts that they've been responsible for and in charge of. And here we would see, for example, the annual financial statement sign-offs that they would have had to have signed off. The annual reports, which again might mention them as CEO or senior operational or whatever it is their position was, and any references that can be gathered either about them from previous employers, from their clients, etc., to attest to these various responsibilities. We need to know that these individuals have participated in or that they've led boards for 5 years or more. So boards of directors for 5 years or more. And to do that, we'd need to either see an appointment letter to the board. So, for example, they would have been appointed to the board, or they would have been appointed chairperson of the board, but there would be some document confirming that. We would want to see minutes, perhaps, of some of those meetings just to see their involvement. And potentially, in some instances, if they've done it and they've finished doing it, there would be letters of appreciation which might have been written to them that would need to be in the individual's vault, that would then allow us, our assessors, to check and to make sure that they could verify that these individuals have led the board for 5 years or more, or led, a board in 5 companies for a year each. It doesn't matter, as long as we can see the variety of the experience of participating in or leading a board for longer than 5 years in one way or another. Remembering that it's the assessors who would make the final determination. The assessor's work would be checked about the work about the evidence that's in the vault, and the assessor's work would be checked out by our moderators, and the final decision would be made by the professional body board on the basis of the report which has been submitted by the assessor and moderators. So there are 3 stages of checks and balances to make sure that the evidence is there. The evidence is talking to the point that's being measured. So really, it is a foolproof process. We want to see that the individual has been involved in 4 financial statements, annual financial statements, either responsible for or had a major role in developing those annual financial statements. A company's done an integrated report if it's a listed company, and so that too could be submitted as evidence of all of these components. We would like to see that an individual has served for at least 1 term on a committee or a forum as a subject matter expert in terms of skills or basic conditions of employment or training, or an employer association, a trade association, a bargaining forum, some kind of a charter council, or a professional body. So we want to see that they've been involved in industry activities and not just company activities. And there we would look as evidence to their letters of appointment or letters of reappointment. We also would like to see that they've written at least 1 document on the contact center sector, on their company, either an internal article for a newsletter or an external article which might have been published in a thought leadership magazine. But we want to see the actual document, the actual article which has been written. And then very finally, in terms of criteria, we want to see that the individual has been responsible for coaching and for mentoring at least 2 people in the course of their 15-year career. And here it could either be letters to them in terms of the mentoring or coaching process, or confirmation letters that they've been appointed as the coach or the mentor of the individual. All of these factors are factors that simply need evidence that it's happened, that it's been done. and that it's not in the imagination. Our criteria are that we need to see 60% of this evidence. So whereas the criteria are worked in excess of 15 years, 10 years at a senior management level, employed 150 or more staff and 3 or more line managers reporting to them, turnover in excess of 20 million for 5 years, participated in leading or participating in board meetings for 5 years, responsibility for 4 annual financial statements, that they've served on a committee or forum as we discussed, that they've written an article, and that they've been responsible for coaching and mentoring of at least 2 people. It's 60% of those criteria. So if there are 10 criteria, 6 of them will have to have been satisfied. Let's just count them quickly so we can work out what the percentage is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9. So essentially we'd need to see 5 of these 9 having been satisfied with sufficient evidence in place for the assessor to say they accept the evidence, the portfolio of evidence, and for the moderator to say the assessor has made a good decision in accepting and recommending. If there are gaps, then the assessor will address the gaps to you and give you a period of time within which those gaps should be remediated. And you'll get an idea of the time frame on the right-hand side of this page, because as you can see, it actually talks about the number of working days for each of the various activities, if there's remediation required, etc., etc. It's all there in that flow chart. So, Sharon, maybe I could ask, are there any thoughts or questions or concerns at this stage that anyone might want to express?
Ivor, I've actually gone through the process myself, and I must say it doesn't take very long. So I have managed to complete, in all the criterias, there is 1.5 that I'm missing. And now I'm busy uploading my proof of evidence. So I don't know. There are no issues. I wanted to just go through the process myself to make sure that it worked. Honestly, all these people that have applied, I don't see any issues knowing their experience and knowing their competence.
So the important thing is, and we heard this from a couple of the people during the last meeting, that they've done all of this so many times that they've actually not held on to any of the evidence. And so that could in fact be the only stumbling block for some of them, where they have to go back and they have to find the CVs or the references or the letters of recommendation or the letters of appointment, or the thank you letters for having served on boards, or the articles themselves. It's just that, you know, people get so busy that they don't always keep all their documents in one place. And so that is the challenge. That the portfolio has to be built, the vault has to be populated, and presumably, Sharon, your vault is being structured in such a way that it will have subsections relating to each of these criteria.
Yes, it's actually done very nicely, Ivor. It poses the question to you. You're allowed to then give free flow information, and then you're allowed to update or attach as much as you possibly can.
All right, well, that's fantastic. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Anything anyone want elaboration on? Any idea that you might want to have refined in terms of what evidence can be presented or should be presented for a particular criteria?
I think on my side, hi, Eva, it's Cindy, on behalf of Annie. I think on my side it's actually quite clear, and for you to have actually gone through the flow chart in terms of what's required, it's self-explanatory, and it's not just a matter of putting the evidence together and obviously assisting Annie where possible. And the 15 years that the evidence is looking for, like going back to your size, it is going to be a bit challenging because people also changed employment and they may have left that information behind. But I think it's quite clear. When we need assistance, we'll definitely get in touch with you guys. The only question that I have, which I may have missed because I'm just coming in today, is what's the deadline for the submission of the POE?
All right, so let's go through the process on the right-hand side of the page. It says you will apply, or the individual will apply They will then be contacted by a member of the professional body. In this case, it would be Michael, who would phone them and say, I'm your personal advisor. Let me take you through the process. Do you have any questions? Are you comfortable with finding the evidence, etc., etc.? And then a neutral external desk-based assessment would be done of that application process. And really that we've given that a 30 working days of registration on the system. So that process of registration, to register, to upload information, etc., is 30 working days, which is 5 working weeks, or 6 working weeks. So for a month and a half, basically, to upload all the information into the vault which is required, which will then see a neutral external desk-based assessment done of what's in the vault against the various criteria. And here we would have a register assessor. And if the vault is properly populated, the review will take 10 working days or 2 weeks for a response from the assessor to the applicant. If remediation is required, another 2 working weeks are allowed for a response from the applicant, and another 2 working weeks for a review of what's in the vault to make sure that the gaps have been addressed. And then it progresses through to moderation, and moderation will take 2 working weeks. And from there, the moderator report will be put in as a final recommendation to the professional body CEO. And the CEO of the professional body, with a specific and express mandate from the professional body to approve and to disapprove designation, and to recommend over a 10 working day period to the board of the professional body to actually approve the designation of the individual. And in fact, those 10 working days might be to reject. In other words, the CEO coming back and saying there are still some fundamental flaws or gaps. So that basically is the time periods which attach to each of the stages, Cindy. And ultimately, at the end of the day, at any of those stages, there is a simple way of applying to the professional body to extend a particular leg, because you're not managing to do it in the time period which has been allowed.
Okay. Quite clear.
Just from my side, sorry, Cindy, just to add from my side, so I've been in this industry for way too long. When you start knocking the 30 years, you can find nothing, because you've moved home so many times, and you know what you do when you want to move home. You get rid of what you don't want. However, I've put together a network of the people that I have worked with who are still in the industry. And I have asked them for reference letters, for confirmation. I've reached out to other board members. I was on the board of CIPRO, which is now CIPC. Rob Angel's not there, so I've reached out to Astrid, who was on the board with me, to give me confirmation. So that's how I've approached this whole thing, because I've done it. I'm now just trying to prove it.
Okay. All right. Hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
As easy as that.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so Sharon, I think, we don't need to belabor the point. This can then serve as a decent introduction to the individuals as to how to start creating their portfolio of evidence. Do you want to maybe just give us an idea, Sharon, of how people access their vaults to be able to upload information?
Yes. Most of them have already been sent the link. There is a link. It is on your membership database system that we manage. And all you do is you log on, you create a name, you create a password, and that is then yours. And then you start filling in all the information. And then you start answering the questions, and then you start uploading the documentation. It's as easy as that.
Oh,
all right.
Sounds good.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, good. Well, there's no need to belabor the point then, Sharon. I think we've dealt with the topic.
Magnificent. I thank you very much. This recording will be sent to everybody else.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye.